Ladies and gentlemen, let me talk to you for a second. You ever been in a situation where somebody did you dirty, like really hurt you, and then turned around and acted like nothing even happened, like you imagined the whole thing? You sitting there with your heart wide open, broken pieces in your hand, and they're just chilling like they didn't wreck your whole world. Let me tell you something, that ain't love. That's narcissism. That's manipulation. That's a person who doesn't even know how to spell accountability. See, a narcissist is a different kind of creature. They don't apologize because in their mind they didn't do anything wrong. Matter of fact, they flip the script so fast, you start wondering if maybe you were the problem. But let me assure you, you were not. You were just an audience to their performance. And when the curtain closed, they left you in the dark. They act like nothing happened because to them, feelings are optional and yours don't count. They've convinced themselves that emotions are weaknesses, and if you bring them up, now you being too sensitive. You just want to talk, to heal, to understand, and they just want to move on like you didn't cry yourself to sleep last night. That's what they do. Pretend. Pretend it didn't hurt. Pretend it wasn't real. Pretend like your pain is inconvenient. Let me tell you what's really going on. Narcissists can't handle being the bad guy in their own story. Their image is everything. They're addicted to admiration, to praise, to always being the hero. So when they hurt someone, they don't take time to reflect, to grow, or to apologize. Nah, that would mean admitting fault. That would mean being vulnerable. And baby, vulnerability to a narcissist is like sunlight to a vampire. It burns. And here's the worst part. They often leave you to clean up the emotional mess alone because their job was never to love you right. It was to make you feel lucky they even chose you in the first place. They want you confused, doubting, chasing, because as long as you're chasing closure, they're in control. You might be waiting for that apology. You might be replaying the moments, trying to understand what you did wrong. But let me help you out right now. You didn't do anything to deserve being treated like that, and you don't need their apology to heal. What you need is clarity. What you need is peace, and peace don't come from them. It comes from you realizing you were worth more than they ever gave. So stop looking for an explanation from someone who lives in denial. Stop asking for closure from someone who closed the door and threw away the key. You can't get truth from someone who's scared of it. You can't build love with someone who's only loyal to themselves. When someone with narcissistic tendencies hurts you and then acts like nothing ever happened, it's not just cold, it's calculated. Narcissists are masters at avoiding accountability. It's not that they forget what they did, it's that admitting fault would be like setting fire to the illusion they've worked so hard to create. You see, narcissists build their world around an image, one where they're always right, always the victim, always the hero. The moment they acknowledge they hurt someone, they shatter that image. So instead, they choose to pretend. They pretend they didn't lie, didn't manipulate, didn't betray, because if it didn't happen in their eyes, they don't have to take responsibility for it. This behavior is more than just denial. It's a survival mechanism for their ego. Narcissists are deeply insecure at their core, but they'll never show it. They wear arrogance like armor, and blaming others is their shield. If they hurt you and admit it, it forces them to face their own flaws, and that's something they just can't do. So they take the easier route, rewrite the story, make themselves the misunderstood one, make you the one who overreacted. To them, accountability isn't an act of maturity, it's a threat to their carefully curated identity. And what makes this especially painful for the person on the receiving end is the emotional whiplash. You're sitting there waiting for a conversation, an apology, a sliver of remorse, something to acknowledge the damage they caused. But instead, they laugh like nothing's wrong. They talk about the weather, about their day, about anything but the hurt they inflicted. You start questioning yourself. Maybe it wasn't that bad. Maybe I was too sensitive. Maybe I caused this. That's the trap. Narcissists don't need to explain away their behavior when they can just make you do it for them. This pattern is toxic. When someone refuses to acknowledge your pain, they are not just neglecting your feelings, they are erasing them. They are sending the message that your emotional experience is irrelevant unless it aligns with their version of events. And that's where the real damage happens. You begin to internalize that erasure. You start to believe that your voice doesn't matter, that maybe your hurt isn't valid. But the truth is, your pain is real. What happened was real. Just because someone refuses to own their actions doesn't make the consequences disappear. There's also a reason this tactic works so well for them, because when they act like nothing happened, it disarms you. It puts you on the defensive. You want to fix things, get answers, make sense of the chaos. And while you're chasing clarity, they're watching from a distance, untouched and unmoved. It keeps the power in their hands. The moment you start explaining your feelings or defending your reactions, they've already turned the tables. Now the conversation isn't about what they did. It's about how you responded. It's a distraction tactic, a clever one. But it's important to see this for what it is: emotional avoidance, not emotional depth. Narcissists are not emotionally equipped to face discomfort. They'd rather deflect than reflect. They'd rather be seen as heartless than as flawed, because to them, being flawed means being exposed. It means opening the door to criticism, vulnerability, and the possibility of being rejected. And they will do anything to avoid that feeling, including gaslighting you into silence. Here's the harsh truth: someone who truly cares about you, who truly respects you, will feel the weight of your pain. They'll acknowledge when they've hurt you, even if it's hard, because love doesn't hide from responsibility. Love doesn't pretend harm didn't happen. Love says, I see what I did, and I want to make it right. Narcissists aren't interested in making it right. They're interested in making it go away, and if they can't do that, they'll try to make you go away instead. That's why it's so crucial to recognize this behavior for what it is. It's not just someone being emotionally unavailable or bad at communication. It's someone choosing their ego over your well-being. It's someone who sees accountability as a weakness instead of a strength. And no matter how much you love them, no matter how hard you try to explain or express, they won't change unless they see a problem. And if they can act like nothing happened, then in their mind, there is no problem. You deserve more than someone who walks away from the damage they cause and leaves you alone in the wreckage. You deserve someone who listens, who owns their mistakes, who shows up, not just when it's easy, but when it's hard. Someone who chooses connection over control. Because real strength isn't found in pretending things are fine. Real strength is found in honesty, humility, and the courage to say, I was wrong. So the next time someone acts like they didn't hurt you, remember this: their silence doesn't erase your truth. Their denial doesn't make your experience any less real, and their lack of remorse doesn't define your worth. Accountability isn't optional. It's the foundation of every healthy relationship. And if someone can't give you that, then they're not capable of giving you love either. One of the most dangerous things a narcissist does is manipulate your emotions and distort your reality in a way that leaves you questioning everything, including yourself. When someone hurts you deeply and then behaves as though nothing significant happened, it throws you into a whirlwind of confusion. You begin to wonder if you overreacted, if you misread the situation, if somehow this pain is your own fault. This isn't just an accident. It's a calculated behavior that narcissists use to keep control. What's so chilling about this tactic is how quiet and subtle it can be. A narcissist doesn't need to scream to control you. They just need to minimize. They dismiss your hurt with a laugh, a shrug, or even worse, complete silence. When you try to bring up how something made you feel, they might say, you're being too sensitive, or you always make a big deal out of nothing. These statements aren't just dismissive. They're designed to make you doubt your own experience. And the moment you begin to question your own emotions, you give up your power. That's what they want. The truth is, narcissists know what they did. They're not clueless. They're careful. But acknowledging that they hurt you would mean surrendering control. And they thrive off of having the upper hand. If they admit fault, even slightly, it puts you on equal ground. That's not something they're comfortable with. So instead, they work to flip the story. Now you're not the one who was betrayed. You're the one who's too emotional, hard to talk to, or always causing drama. You came to them with pain, and they hand you back guilt. And if you're someone who values emotional connection, who wants to talk things through, and resolve conflict, then you're especially vulnerable to this kind of manipulation because you're trying to reach them through honesty while they're playing a whole different game. They don't seek truth, they seek dominance, and confusing you is a key part of how they maintain it. When this cycle continues, it starts to change you. You may become quieter, less expressive, less likely to speak up when something doesn't feel right. Why? Because you've been trained to believe your emotions are invalid, that your reactions are too much. That peace means silence, and that is not peace, it's suppression, it's emotional imprisonment. And the worst part, you don't even see it happening at first, because it's done under the disguise of love, or toughness, or just how I am. You start adapting to their behavior, instead of expecting them to take responsibility. You walk on eggshells to avoid conflict. You overthink your words, so you won't be labeled dramatic. You internalize the blame they hand to you, and slowly, the version of you that once trusted your own instincts, that once spoke with clarity and confidence, begins to fade, all while they continue walking through life unbothered, untouched, and unchecked. This manipulation isn't just personal, it's psychological warfare, and it works because narcissists are often charming. On the surface, they can be charismatic, confident, and even affectionate. But behind closed doors, when accountability knocks on the door, they vanish. They vanish into silence, deflection, or anger. They create emotional chaos, and then stand back and watch you try to clean it up, while blaming you for the mess. But the truth is, it's not your job to hold yourself responsible for someone else's behavior. It's not your duty to shrink yourself to make someone else feel powerful. And it's definitely not your burden to carry someone else's guilt simply because they refuse to acknowledge it. You are not too sensitive. You are not overreacting. You are someone who feels deeply, who wants honesty, who believes in resolution. That's not a weakness, it's a strength. But with a narcissist, that strength becomes their target. They can't control someone who knows their worth, so they aim to break it down, piece by piece, until you're second-guessing your every thought, feeling, and decision. Reclaiming your voice means trusting your emotions again. It means understanding that someone who truly cares about you won't make you feel crazy for expressing hurt. They won't gaslight you into silence. They won't disappear behind fake normalcy and expect you to play along. Love isn't about confusion, it's about clarity, and any relationship that makes you constantly question your reality is not love, it's manipulation. If someone hurts you and then acts like it never happened, that is not someone who respects you. That is someone who wants to keep control of the story. And as long as they can make you feel like your emotions are a burden, they get to stay in the role of the victim or the hero. But you don't have to play a part in their performance. You have the right to feel what you feel. You have the right to call out hurtful behavior, and you have the right to walk away from anyone who refuses to honor your truth. Your emotions are not too much. Your clarity is not too sharp. Your love is not too deep. The problem isn't how much you feel, it's how little they do. And the more you recognize that, the harder it becomes for them to keep you trapped in a false reality. Healing after being hurt by a narcissist often begins with realizing that you don't need their apology to move forward. That might sound difficult, especially when you've been waiting for them to acknowledge what they did, to say the words that would make things right. You replay the moments in your head, trying to understand what went wrong, thinking if they could just admit it, everything would feel better. But here's the hard truth. They probably never will. And even if they do, it won't come from a place of true remorse. It'll be a performance, another tool to manipulate or regain control. So instead of waiting on an apology that may never come, you have to choose yourself. You have to decide that your healing, your peace, your worth aren't dependent on someone else's recognition of your pain. See, healing doesn't begin with their apology. It begins with your clarity. The moment you accept that what happened was wrong, that your feelings are valid, and that you deserve better. That's the beginning of freedom. It's not about denying what they did. It's about no longer needing the validation to believe it happened. Because when you keep waiting for them to apologize, you're handing over your healing to the very person who broke you. And they're not going to hold it gently. They're going to keep twisting it, using your need for closure as a leash. This is the emotional trap many people fall into. You think that if they say I'm sorry, it will bring you peace. But peace doesn't come from their words. It comes from you reclaiming your power, from saying, yes, I was hurt,
Yes, it was unfair.
but no, I will not live in this pain any longer. That's how healing really begins. You stop chasing
Whoa.
moment that may never come and start building your own closure. Closure is a decision, not a conversation. It's the choice to stop explaining yourself to someone committed to misunderstanding you. It's choosing to believe your own heart, your own mind, over the gaslighting and silence. You don't need someone who hurt you to suddenly become honest. You just need to become honest with yourself. Admit it hurt. Admit you wanted better. Admit you stayed longer than you should have because you hoped they would change. And then forgive yourself, not them, for what you didn't know then, because you know better. No, this process isn't easy. There will be days you want to reach out, hoping this time they'll say the right thing. There will be nights you replay,
Whoa.
wondering what you did wrong. But every time you choose silence over reaching out, every time you cry and then stand up again, you're healing, you're moving forward, you're becoming stronger. Then the version of you who still needed the peace doesn't come loud, it comes quietly, in the small moments, when you finally stop arguing with the memory, when you choose to stop waiting at the door of someone who locked you out, when you realize your worth is not up for debate, not even by the one who tried to take it from you. Loving yourself after being hurt by a narcissist means learning to pour that same love you gave them into yourself. You spent so much time trying to fix them, understand them, love them through their day, but now it's time to give that energy back to the one person who truly deserves it. You self-love is not selfish, it's survival. When you take all that compassion, all that loyalty, all that energy you gave away, and return it to your own soul, you start to heal in a way that no apology ever could. That means caring for your mental peace like it's sacred. That means setting boundaries, not just with them, but with your own mind. Stop letting your thoughts circle around the same pain. Stop revisiting conversations that never brought you clarity. Start feeding your mind with truth, with kindness, with hope. Remind yourself every day that you are not defined by what someone else couldn't give you. Sometimes the most powerful thing you can do is love yourself in the exact way they refuse to. Be gentle with your emotions. Be patient with your healing. Be proud of how far you've come, even when it looks like you're still standing in the shadow of what happened. Because every step away from that darkness is a step toward light. Rebuilding yourself after a narcissist takes time. You won't wake up one day suddenly healed, but you will wake up one day and realize the weight is lighter. The memories don't sting as sharply. You laugh more. You cry less. You trust your gut again. And that's when you know you didn't need their apology to heal. You needed you, the real you, the one who survived what tried to break you, the one who refused to stay broken. And now you can stop looking back because the only thing that matters now is the peace you choose, the love you build, and the life you reclaim. Not because they apologize, but because you finally did the one thing they never could. You took responsibility. It took responsibility for your healing. And that's what real strength looks like. Self-love is often talked about like it's a spa day or a social media caption. But after surviving emotional manipulation, real self-love becomes something much deeper. It becomes a way of survival. When you've spent months or even years loving someone who made you feel like your emotions were a problem, like your needs were too much, like your voice didn't match, like your voice didn't matter, you start to forget how to love yourself. That's what narcissistic relationships do. They take your energy, your softness, your empathy. You find yourself constantly giving, constantly trying to prove your worth, until one day you wake up completely depleted. And the worst part is, they don't notice, they don't care. That's when you realize that the only person who can truly give you the love you deserve is you. At first, this realization can feel devastating. You've been waiting for them to see you, to understand you, to finally value what you brought to the relationship, but they never did, and they probably never will. That's not your fault. Narcissists aren't looking for love. They're looking for supply, attention, admiration, control. And once you stop feeding that, they move on or turn cold. That's when you start to see their true colors. And even though it hurts, that clarity is powerful because once the mask slips, you no longer need to question what you're worth. You start to understand that the way they treated you had nothing to do with how lovable you are and everything to do with how empty they are inside. So what do you do with all that love you were ready to give? You pour it back into yourself. You stop chasing them and start chasing your own healing. You become the person who listens to your own needs, who comforts your own pain, who stands up for your own worth. Self-love becomes the practice of choosing yourself every single day. Even when the memory of them tries to sneak in and tell you that you're hard to love, you remember that they couldn't love. You remember that they couldn't love you because they don't know how to love anyone. Not even self-love means stop over-explaining yourself to people who are committed to misunderstanding you. You no longer feel the need to prove your pain, to beg someone to see how they hurt you. You've already seen it, you've already felt it, and that's enough. You start to protect your peace like it's the most valuable thing in your life, because it is. You no longer accept chaos as normal. You no longer allow emotional neglect to feel like home. You build a new home inside yourself, one where you are safe, seen, and respected. This process doesn't happen overnight. Some days you'll still feel the urge to reach out. Some days you'll still cry. Some days you'll still miss the idea of them. But each time you choose not to go back, you grow stronger. Each time you speak kindly to yourself, instead of criticizing your mistakes, you grow softer in the best way. And eventually the person you see in the mirror will no longer be a reflection of pain, but a reminder of resilience. Self-love also means setting new standards. You don't entertain half-love anymore. You don't settle for people who bankroll you, who gaslight you, who take more than they give. You become so familiar with what real love feels like because you've given it to yourself that anything less is easy to walk away from. You learn how to listen to your intuition, that quiet voice inside that tells you when something isn't right. The voice that narcissists worked so hard to silence. You turn the volume back up, and through this transformation, something incredible happens. You stop blaming yourself. You stop wondering what you could have done differently, because deep down, you realize the truth. There was nothing you could have done to make someone love you who wasn't capable of love. You were never the problem. You were simply the mirror that reflected back what they refused to face, and for that, they resented you. But you don't have to carry that resentment anymore. You get to put it down. You get to heal. Self-love isn't about forgetting what happened. It's about remembering who you were before they made you feel small. It's about reconnecting with the parts of you that were buried under their criticism, their silence, their control. It's about becoming whole again, not because they came back, not because they apologized, but because you decided to come back to yourself. You survived something that was meant to crush you. That kind of survival deserves celebration, not shame. So you give yourself grace. You stop calling yourself foolish for loving deeply. You stop blaming yourself for staying too long. You realize that your loyalty, your heart, your hope, those were never weaknesses. They were signs of your strength. And now, you get to use that strength for your own healing. This is what self-love looks like. It's quiet, it's steady, it's powerful. It's the decision to choose yourself, not just once, but every single time. It's the reminder that even after all the pain, you are still worthy, still whole, still enough, always have been, always will be. It's one of the most painful realizations. You can come to the person who hurt you the most, will never admit it. They'll walk away, act like nothing happened, and you'll be left behind carrying the wounds they caused. But here's where the shift happens. When you stop looking for them to make it right and start realizing that their inability to fix impossibility says everything about them, nothing about them. Once you see this clearly, something within you begins to wake up. You start to understand that you don't have to keep replaying the past, hoping for a different outcome. You get to choose peace. You get to stop reaching backward and start moving forward. Peace isn't a loud declaration or a dramatic exit. It's a quiet, personal decision. It's saying to yourself, I'm not doing this anymore. I'm not sacrificing my mental health, trying to understand someone who refuses to be understood. That's where freedom starts to show up. When you stop expecting a narcissist to suddenly develop emotional maturity, you give yourself permission to feel something sometimes all more powerful than closure. You begin to feel peace. And peace, unlike closure, doesn't require their involvement. It requires your choice. That choice doesn't mean the pain disappears overnight. There will still be days
When the memories sneak up on you, you'll still remember the times they made you feel like your voice didn't matter, when your truth was met with silence, or twisted into something ugly. You might even feel guilty for choosing to move on, without them ever admitting they were wrong. But that guilt isn't yours to hold. You are not responsible for someone else's lack of growth. You are responsible for protecting your own well-being. And that means learning to walk away, even when you don't get the apology you deserve. Choosing peace also means creating new patterns. Choosing peace also means creating. It means you stop arguing with people who only listen to respond, not to understand. It means you no longer waste your energy proving your worth to people who are committed to misunderstanding you. Instead, you save that energy for things that restore you, for people who respect your boundaries, for spaces where you're allowed to be both soft and boundaries, for spaces where you're allowed and strong. You begin to see that peace isn't something you find, it's something you build, piece by piece, boundary by boundary, choice by choice. You learn that not everyone deserves access to you. Just because someone was once close to you doesn't mean they're entitled to your presence, especially if they use that closeness to control, manipulate, or diminish you. It's not cruel to walk away from people who made you feel like you had to beg for basic respect. It's not selfish to protect your energy. It's necessary. The more you honor your peace, the less interested you become in the peace of its standards. And maybe the most beautiful part of choosing peace is that it opens the door to something even greater, joy, genuine joy. Not the kind that comes from someone else's validation, the kind that comes from knowing who you are and what you deserve. You start to laugh again, not because everything is perfect, but because you're no longer carrying someone else's emotional baggage. You begin to experience your life on your own terms, no longer filtered through the lens of someone who tried to dim your light. Peace doesn't come easy, especially when you've been trained to seek love through struggle. But once you taste it, once you see how calm life can be, when you stop chasing people who don't care, you'll never want to go back. That kind of peace becomes sacred. You protect it fiercely. You no longer entertain chaos disguised as passion. You don't romanticize the roller coaster anymore. You want real. You want stable. You want safe. And most importantly, you want honest. That honesty starts with you. You stop pretending it didn't. You stop pretending it didn't hurt. You stop telling yourself it wasn't that bad. You allow yourself to feel the loss, the betrayal, the confusion, and then you let those feelings move through you, not control you, because peace doesn't mean you never feel pain again. It means you no longer let that pain run your life. And when the day comes that you finally look back, not with anger, but with understanding, you'll see how far you've come. You'll see that choosing peace wasn't giving up. It was rising above. It was saying, I matter. My heart matters. My future matters. That's a powerful declaration, one that no narcissist can take from you, because, well, they acted like nothing happened. You did the brave thing. They avoided the truth, and you faced it. They denied the damage, and you healed from it. They stayed the same, and you grew. That is your power. That is your peace. And it was never theirs to give. It was always yours to claim.